If you're thinking about buying a used vehicle, high mileage like this one, I'm going to give you a couple tips here that you absolutely must know, so stick with me. Welcome to the OrtoTech Garage. My name is Keith. Today I'm talking about inspection and maintenance readiness monitors. If you're like most people, you're going to buy a vehicle like this. You'll drive it around maybe for a week or two before you start to identify you've got some real problems. It's possible that this vehicle has had somebody clear the check engine light right before you came to check it out. You didn't see any lights on the dash and you thought everything was okay to go. But this vehicle hasn't completed its drive cycle yet, and it hasn't had all the readiness monitors tripped to ready yet. So the computer is not actually monitoring all the things that are going on within the car. After a couple of drive cycles, those monitors flip to ready. Now the computer is starting to identify some problems. This is what we want to avoid. So I've seen this firsthand. I've helped people purchase cars in the past. One particular case I remember not too long ago was helping my nephew find his first car, 16 years old, and went to look at a Nissan. And this particular vehicle had no check engine light on, but when I connected my scan tool to the vehicle, I could see that some of the readiness monitors were not set to ready yet. And what that told me is that somebody had recently, probably right before I got there, reset the check engine light to turn the light off and tried to hide the problem that was in there. But I was able to locate where the problem was. I actually pulled some codes from the transmission control module. There were some pending codes in there, and this thing had a complete transmission failure going on. So although the vehicle seemed to drive okay at the moment for a short road test, there's clearly something going on there that he was trying to cover up, and we were able to avoid the crisis of buying a car that needed a full transmission replacement. So I want to show you how this works and show you what's involved in it. We're going to get into that here in a second. But I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about the purpose of the IM readiness monitors. There's two types of monitors. There's continuous monitors that are looking for things like engine misfires and fuel system problems. And then there's non-continuous monitors. Those monitors are looking for usually emissions devices, catalytic converter problems, EGR system problems, evaporative emission system problems. So the real difference is the continuous monitors are always functioning in the background. From the time you start the car till the time you shut it off, they're looking for these problems, whereas the non-continuous monitors usually is something more along the lines of waiting for a process to happen before they can test something. So like an evaporative emission system, there's some certain conditions that have to be met before it'll actually set a code. You need a certain amount of fuel in the tank, you need to generally drive a bit, so those things don't function 24 hours a day while you're driving. They're not continuous. These inspection and maintenance readiness monitors can be found in all vehicles with onboard diagnostic second generation connectors on them. Those are the 16-pin connectors you generally find under the driver's side of the dashboard. You can hook up a generic scan tool and get OBD II information at a most generic scan tool. It's not going to give you the factory level information in a lot of items, but it will certainly give you everything you need for this particular IM readiness component test. So I want to get inside the car and I want to show you what these monitors look like and show you what the process is for checking them. I want to show you how to check these monitors if you have a pretty inexpensive scan tool, something like this. This is made by a company called Launch, and you can find these on Amazon. There's tons of little code readers that you can get. You shouldn't need anything more fancy than this. You might spend 50, 75 bucks, 100 bucks. You could go up into hundreds and thousands if you really want to get a fancy scan tool, but some simple code reader, something like this, will do the job. On one end, you're going to see it has this 16-pin connector on it. The connector is shaped like a trapezoid, where the bottom is wider than the top, and it also has a locating dowel on it. You cannot connect this wrong to the OBD II connector on there. It only goes in one way. Just be careful you don't bend any of the pins when you put it in there. Some of these connections are located deep under the dash or behind panels and things. They might be hard to see. Take your time plugging this in. I've seen some people bend the tabs on the scan tools because they're trying to force it in where it doesn't go. So let's connect and let's see what it looks like in there. So while we're connecting this tool, I've got the ignition off. We don't want to plug this in while the ignition is turned on. We'll plug it in first. Well, I got this scan tool has begun to light up because it's getting power directly from the OBD II port. Okay, once we've done that, we're ready to go in here and turn the ignition on. So with the ignition on, all the lights are going to light up on the dashboard, and our scan tool is ready to connect to the onboard computer. So I've got this little code reader connected. It's going to tell us a few things starting at the top. You're going to see here, MIL is the malfunction indicator light. That's your check engine light. It's going to tell us the check engine light is off. You probably would have seen that already if you were checking this car out yourself because it wouldn't be illuminated on the dashboard. It's going to tell you if there's any DTCs or diagnostic trouble codes in the engine control unit. That's the onboard computer for the engine management system. It says 0 codes. Now don't be deceived by those 2 alone. This is what we're really looking for. We're looking for the readiness monitors that have been completed, and it says 7 on here. And right below that you'll see it says readiness not completed 0. So this is a good sign. That means that all 7 readiness monitors that this vehicle has on it have all been set to ready. The drive cycles have been completed, and the computer is monitoring through continuous and non-continuous monitors everything that's going on in this engine management system. This is ready to set a fault code the way it sits. If this right here where it says readiness not completed showed you 1, 2, or 3, and this one showed you 5 or 6, that would let you know that you have a couple of readiness monitors that have not been tripped to ready yet, and they're not monitoring the system, so there's no way they're going to identify a fault code yet. This vehicle will need what they call a drive cycle completed on it. The drive cycle is a very particular set of circumstances that must happen in order for these readiness monitors to set to ready. Some of these drive cycles that I mentioned are very difficult to perform. So you'll start off with a cold engine usually. A lot of times you'll have to have a fuel tank that's between 1/4 and 3/4 full. You may have to drive this car on the freeway for an extended period of time. I've had some cars that need to be driven over 50 miles just to get the drive cycle to complete. So all of these IM readiness monitors are set to ready. There is an actual sheet diagram basically of all the things that have to happen in sequence in order for this is for every manufacturer, in order for these readiness monitors to set. Now that being said, some of them are very difficult, some are very easy. Through the course of normal driving over the period of a day or 2 or 3 or a week even, you will eventually tick all the boxes, all the things that are necessary for you to complete all the readiness monitors for every single IM readiness monitor that's in your vehicle, okay? So generally what happens is, this is why it takes sometimes a week or 2 days or a week even for a check engine light to come on, because some of these drive cycles are difficult to complete all the tasks that are on the checklist through your everyday driving. Maybe you live in the city and there's a lot of traffic and you can't get the vehicle to 55 miles an hour steady for 10 minutes. You know, that's going to be difficult for you to do if you live in Manhattan, New York City somewhere. So this is why sometimes you'll see these check engine lights. I mean, I've seen them go on for weeks sometimes, no problem, and then all of a sudden the light pops on. Because it took that long for somebody to complete all the necessary steps in order to complete the drive cycle for all the monitors that this particular vehicle has. So if you're curious about what it takes on your particular vehicle, you'll probably have to consult a repair manual. You might be able to find some of that information online, what it takes on your car in order to complete the entire drive cycle for all your readiness monitors. Otherwise, just a fair amount of driving will usually get it done. But again, it could be anywhere from short drive, an hour of driving, to days or even weeks of driving. Just depends on the vehicle. I also wanted to mention in there are certain fault codes that won't set right away. They call them 2-trip monitors or 2-trip detection monitors. And basically what that means is first time ever will be the first trip. And that code won't set fully, and it won't turn the check engine light on until it's seen a repeat of the problem again in a completely separate trip. And by separate trip, I mean a different ignition cycle. So you'd have to drive the car, shut the vehicle off, let it sit a minute, and then restart the car and drive it again. That would be a second trip. So some of these codes, though, will be stored in the pending code section of a proper scan tool. So this is kind of the importance of making sure that you know where to look if you're looking for hidden trouble. Pending codes is one place to look. The check engine light won't be on, but the code will be pending, ready to set along the next trip as soon as it sees the fault again. Now, sometimes you'll have an intermittent problem where the fault may happen, once a week or something. So this is where this 2-trip logic detection comes in. It's basically not going to set that code until it sees it the second time. So if it sees it today and not again for 2 weeks, and then it sees that again, then it'll turn the check engine light on. So especially with cars that have intermittent problems, this is why a check engine light may not come on for an extended period of time. Could be weeks, could be a month. It needs to see that 2 times before it sets the check engine light on. So here's a close-up of this Toyota Sequoia's readiness monitors. You can see on here that it has some that say OK, some that say NA, not applicable, and you might see some that are not ready, okay, or not set. So this one is showing you that the ones that are NA, this vehicle doesn't have them. It doesn't have an EGR system on it. It doesn't have this secondary air injection system on it, and it doesn't have a heated catalyst monitor on it. So that's okay if it says NA. It just means this vehicle is not monitoring those components or it doesn't have them. But the ones that you see okay, those are the ones that are being monitored. Some of them continuous and some of them non-continuous. Either way, when you're looking into this data, you want to make sure they all read okay or not applicable. I mentioned the pending code section. Current diagnostic trouble codes, those are ones that have already turned on the check engine light. Those are problems that are occurring right now. The computer is saying there's something wrong. Pending hasn't set yet, but the computer recognized a fault once. It needs to see it again before it's going to set that code fully and then turn on the check engine light. This is the section you want to look for those kinds of problems, pending diagnostic trouble codes. I hope you understand what you're able to achieve with even a very small and inexpensive code reader like the one I've shown you here. It's definitely worth having in your arsenal, especially if you're out trying to purchase a used vehicle on your own. These are some things you definitely want to look at and avoid yourself the headache of buying yourself a lemon, something that's got a gremlin of a problem or something somebody's just trying to scam you on. So make sure you understand this process and you're using it. If you don't have these tools, make sure you take it to a reputable mechanic somewhere and have them plug in and check these things for you. It's really critical to keep you out of hot water, and that's what I'm here for. I want to make sure you guys are not getting yourself in over your head with problems that you shouldn't have to deal with. I wanted to make another note here that this is a very inexpensive scan tool. We use some very sophisticated scan tools that cost a lot more money, in the thousands of dollars. And at some point I want to show you guys the power and capability of a professional style scan tool, some of the things it's able to do versus what this cannot do. And we're going to get some videos going for you on that here in the short term. So keep an eye out for that. I think you guys will enjoy watching some of that content to see what the pros are doing. Guys, we're here to save you money. If you're liking our content, you're enjoying this type of video, please consider liking and subscribing to our videos. You'll really be helping the channel out. We want to provide a lot of great content for you and a lot of value for you. We know your time is important to you, and watching these videos hopefully is giving you some value there. Don't forget to check out our next video over here. We've got more great content for you. We'll see you in the next one.